Yes, I'm back. Wanted to take a little break from my videos for a little while, but just couldn't help myself. So, somebody else is back as well, namely a person named Peterson, a big Wall Street investor, Wall Street billionaire, in fact. And he's back on the scene. So I want to share an article with you entitled, "The Scheme to Loot Social Security Must Be Stopped Before the Democrats Think It Is Smart Politics." It's a pretty good article, published at The Nation, a non-mainstream newspaper, by William Grider. So I will post a link to it. So yeah, Peterson, and please look him up. He's back with his own news network, no less, to promote his right-wing rants about shrinking the only retirement system available to millions of working Americans once they reach old age or become somehow infirm through some sort of disability. Peterson styles himself as a patriot, saving the nation from fiscal insolvency, and has committed $1 billion to that effort, a chunk of the wealth he garnered and accumulated by taking over other firms. His effort might be dismissed as ludicrous, except money does talk in Washington, and Peterson is now buying Washington reporters to spread this message. The retired mogul has created a digital news agency he dubs Fiscal Times and hired 8 seasoned reporters to do the work. An impressive group of veteran journalists, Peterson calls them. I hope they have shaken a lot of money out of this rich geezer, because I predict doing the hack work for him will seriously soil their reputations for objectivity and independence. Yeah. So much for the Washington Post. With his great wealth, Peterson could have also bought a newspaper to publish his dispatches, but he did better than that. He hooked up with the Washington Post, which has agreed to jointly produce content focusing on the budget and fiscal issues. Now, of course, this all sounds innocuous enough, doesn't it? It's sort of like buying political propaganda from a Washington lobbyist and then sort of printing it as a news story on the front page or second page, or in the editorials for that matter. I predict some sort of a stink will come up, sort of like the latest one at the Post, where the publisher of that newspaper decided to hold pay-for-play meetings at her own house for the corporate biggies. Of course, you know, that's all forgotten now also. You know, one of the things that Peterson is proposing is that Congress should create a special commission of 18 senators and representatives, not named, of course, empowered to do the make tough budget decisions that politicians are routinely find difficult to impose. That means slashing benefits and raising payroll taxes, or both. Other members of Congress would be, of course, prohibited from changing any of these particular measures and would cast only an up or down vote on the entire package. No amendments allowed. Supposedly, this would give them political cover. Look, no hands. No hands. We just cut Social Security, but it wasn't really our fault. This reform is profoundly undemocratic because it would strip ordinary citizens of the only leverage they might have had left in Washington, the ability to lean on their elected officials and exact retribution if they get sold out. Peterson has two advocates in the Senate. Kent Conrad of South Dakota and Judd Gregg of New Hampshire, who are self-righteous fiscal hawks. The story describes the rising federal deficits as a threat to the Republic, yet it fails to explain why deficits are on the rise. Couldn't have anything to do with the defense budget now, could it? Or our ongoing wars overseas. This cannot be mentioned. The crusade of this kind, the one that Peterson is waging and that Washington is listening to, is a dangerous path. If restoring some sort of a progressive income tax on the wealthy or on capital, never mind corporations to begin with, if this is completely off the table now and people are simply listening to the mantra of fiscal responsibility without realizing where that responsibility actually lies, where the expenses are coming from, then of course they will be going right along with an administration, possibly a Democratic or Democrat administration in Congress, and going all along with Social Security reform, which never would have happened under Bush because there was too much opposition to the whole thing. But now, now it becomes somewhat palatable, doesn't it? Anyway, on to part 2 of my video. The fiscal deficit in this country isn't everything that we need to worry about. It's something to worry about, but without examining the causes and the lobbyists and the liars who tell us continuous lies. Well, on to part 2.